Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank Frank and Walter and the selection committee for the Edison Awards. You know, it is such an honor to be here. But you know, it's especially an honor to be here in the year when you created the Latimer Fellows. We should give that another round of applause. Frank, you and John can hold me to this. I promise to support those fellows for as long as I'm here. I mean, I so believe it. And I found Lewis Latimer's story so inspiring. Next, if there's one reason why I'm here, and you know, people have made a few comments about this before, it's because of design. You know, design has a lot of definitions. You know, many of you, when you hear the word design, you're thinking of fashion or aesthetics or decoration. And I'm definitely not here for that. Well, I look pretty good in a tux, but believe me, if you see me on a regular day, but I do believe that great design is about building incredible products around users, not for users. It's about using your imagination to resolve paradoxes, those things that you can't believe they exist. It's about knowing users better than they know themselves, which is hard to do. And maybe in many cases, it's about bringing an analogy from one field, something that works in one area, and bringing it to a completely new one. There's a designer in everyone in this room. There's a designer in everyone. We've educated it out of them. You've got to find your way back to it. You no longer have to color in the lines. You can experiment and find a new way all the time. You know, the truth is design works. You know, design companies outperform other companies. When I first got in my job, I used to go around to, Garino will remember this, I used to go around to investor groups and I would show a chart of design companies versus the average. And they outperformed regular companies by about 3 to 1. And I think we've increased in value, you know, 10x since I started 9 years ago on this job. And I think we're just another example of that. So it's a valid opportunity for everybody. It's a freebie, you know, just do it. Yeah, for those of you who haven't. Now I'd like to take a minute and talk about the one unique thing. You know, when I look at the list of people on this thing, I'm kind of like, you know, I can't even think about the lid because those people are so impressive. And actually, one of the most impressive people on that list is Carmichael, who you're going to hear from later. Carmichael is too modest to say everything that I hope that his introduction has enough time to say enough good things about him. He is so impressive. But so I tried to think, what could I talk about? You know, just, gosh, you know, Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and Clayton Christensen, you know. So, but I thought, you know, what do I have that they don't have? Besides, I've got a better tux maybe. I thought, I do have one thing. Just one thing. I'm an English major. And I'm working in tech. As a student of words and ideas, I'll give you a few things that to me seem so obvious that they're holding us back. They're holding back our companies, they're holding back our startups, they're holding back our institutions, they're holding back our countries, they're holding back humanity. And you know what's really scary is they're holding back in such a small way. Roger Martin, who's another design thinker, or a big design thinker, said something to me not too long ago about tools. He said, actually, sure you know Roger. He said, you know, tools are really amazing. He said, it's a funny thing about tools though, if tools are available to you, if they're near you, you use them. If they're not, you don't use them. You don't do anything with them. And they make things so easy. Like if you have a loose door in your house, you ever had a loose doorknob? And you know, the screw is not tightened? If you had a screwdriver right there that fit that screw that you could just tighten it right next to the door, you'd fix it, but you don't. So it rattles for years. Words are tools, okay? Tools to categorize things, tools to express things to each other, tools to attack problems. And those tools, you know, those amazing tools have actually increased the sizes of our brains. There's a reason why human brains are bigger than any other animal. We have more complex language. And that has resulted in Actually, the human body uses 20% of all the oxygen we breathe in to support that amazing brain that we have. And that's because of one of those tools, which is the ability to think. And language is one of the biggest developers of those. That perfectly justifies my English major. I want to focus on words that can do that, but sometimes those tools go astray. Sometimes they get misused. Sometimes they develop in the vernacular and they become problems. And instead of becoming tools, they become anti-tools. They become blockers, problems, issues, things that get in our way. And I hope that when you leave here, at least a few people in this audience, a few of you, after this week, will never look at some of these tools, some of these words again. In my humble opinion, two of the most problematic words are words that we use almost every day, at least every week or every month. Success and failure. We all seek success. There's no one in this audience who doesn't seek success. And there's no one in this audience who doesn't want to avoid failure. Nobody. We love success, we hate failure. Think about that. But let's take this more deeply into those two ideas and why we must change the way we think about them, maybe even the way we use them, or maybe get rid of them completely. But let me first tell a story. A story about Bobby, Bart, Shelley, and Bracken. Those are my siblings. They're sitting out here. Two tables. Carmichael's got half the room. I have two tables, Carmichael. Which says a lot about the two of us. When we were kids, our dad left on Christmas Eve with just a note. And our suddenly single mom fell apart. You know, over the next 12 months, she had, I think, at least 4 car crashes. And one of which was in where's John? John, where are you? Raise your hand. John is a car expert. And, well, anyway, John, you know what a Carmen Ghia is, right? Carmen Ghia is about the size of one of these tables. But we were in a Carmen Ghia in a semi-truck, almost rolled right over us. That was one of our 4 crashes that year. When she wasn't crashing the car, this most wonderful woman in the world was second-guessing every conversation she had, probably having a nervous breakdown. And with her, she was second-guessing the conversation she had with her principal. She was a first-grade teacher all her life. She was second-guessing the conversation she had with her parents, or with the students in the class, or what she did wrong in marriage to deserve this plight that she didn't deserve. She second-guessed everything. She would then turn to the only really valuable consultant she had, her therapists, which were Bart, Bracken, Bobby, Shelley, one by one, and look for advice. Or at least she was going to share it with us, one by one. And at some point, while I was getting my turn of listening to Mom's advice, that suffering mom, I said, and she was second-guessing herself, I said, Mom, imagine you're on a beach. I'd never been to a beach before. I said, Mom, imagine you're on a beach, and you got a stick in your hand. You drag that stick behind your heels, and everything from that line back is over. There's no reason to second-guess it. You know that. And everything from this line forward is the rest of your life. You know, you got to live here. So that's for learning. This is for doing and dreaming. And as the years went by, I gave myself that advice over and over again. And when I found myself regretful or second-guessing some stupid thing that I did, and I did plenty, I reminded myself of that line. Well, that's the success and failure. That's exactly where success and failure come in. They are like grades in school behind the line. There's nobody in here who didn't want to get an A and hated to get an F. Okay? Those are labels. They're just labels of what's behind the line. Unfortunately, when it comes to success and failure, unlike grades in school, they live beyond the line if you're not careful. They live past that line. We fear an F so we don't try new things. We don't make a fool of ourselves. We don't take the hard classes in school because we don't want to hurt our grade point average. So failure becomes a self-limiting concept, a barrier you fear. So you curtail your tries. Once we realize, if you've realized, the things that don't work, that go the wrong way, also known as failure, once you realize that those are just these amazing learning events, learning for growth, learning for creation, learning for innovation, you stop avoiding them and you focus on the learning from them, and it's magical. I'm not going to talk about the risk managing your failures, because of course there are failures you can't afford to have, but the vast majority of the failures in our life are not failures at all, they're just learning events. What about success? Success might be worse. It's more insidious. It's sneakier. How could it possibly be wrong to want to be successful? How can that be? But success can give you a record to protect, a reputation to protect, or maybe worst of all, a self-image you don't want to lose. You can't lose, because it's who you work so hard to become. Now that you're successful, you don't want to lose it. It stops you from taking the less beaten path. You know that Robert Frost poem? The crazy things that got you to the point where you did something good no longer are available to you, because you're not going to take that chance, because you're successful. You're there, or you're almost there, or you're partly there. When you had nothing to lose, you had a huge advantage. You had no success. So what in the world do we do to avoid these pitfalls of these two words, success and failure? My solution is really, really simple. I just don't use them. I replace them. Once in a while they slip out. And for those of you who know me well and are around me day to day, I hope you catch me when they slip out. I try to replace them with the word learning. Thomas Edison, and I brought this book up here because I love it. I love his, I think I brought the book up here somewhere. Yeah, I look at the 5th quote in this book. By the way, this thing is loaded. I wish we had one by Lewis Lattimore. I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that it won't work. And I found one that did. On this very stage, Clint said earlier to me yesterday, or 2 days ago, Clint said, on this very stage, Elon Musk, in response to a question, said, you lost $80 million, this was years ago, you lost $80 million on a mistake. If you had it to do over again, what would you do differently? And he said, nothing. It was worth every penny. Jack Welch, the famous CEO of GE, who was, many thought one of the greatest CEOs of all time, told a story that when he was 29 years old, he had his first big job. He was general manager of a plastics factory. He came up with an innovative way to create new plastic at a higher efficiency, blew up the factory, almost killed 2 people, and lost millions of dollars for GE. He prepared his resignation on Friday night after that happened, and he flew to his boss in Fairfield, Connecticut, to go see him, Reginald King, another famous CEO. And he tendered his resignation on the spot and apologized. And Reginald King, who understood this concept of failure and success, said, why in the world would I accept your resignation? I've just invested millions of dollars and you're learning. Carmichael, who I sat next to 2 days ago, completely gets this. Of course he gets this. Over and over again, he has gone against the norm, which I'm sure you're going to hear about later, so I won't preempt any of that, except to say, he hasn't let success get to him. You know, he's the most humble person, and I always associate humility with learning. He's the most humble person, but more importantly, when everybody else is in a venture capital fund, for example, saying, you know, we got to have a very, very distributed portfolio over lots and lots of investments, he's narrowing his. He's got very few investments, relatively speaking. He's going against the norm. He's not letting his success or anybody else's success get to him. Now I'll close now, and then I'm going to thank you people with a story, which I told earlier yesterday, because Miles forced me to. I've been in this job for about 5 years, and after I've been here 5 years, you know, we changed so much. You know, this was right before Wendy got there, almost about the time Wendy got there, and Garino, who was still the chairman. And I thought, you know, we've changed so much that, and you know, then what will the next 5 years be like? So I thought, okay, the next 5 years are going to be even more difficult to manage because it's going to be even more change. So I don't know if I'm the right person for the job. So I wrote down what I thought the next CEO should look like. Could be me. And then I wrote down my credentials and I compared them, and I thought, you know, I look pretty good. I mean, I'd probably have a good shot at this job. It was like a winter night, but I thought, you know, the problem with it is that I know too much, I own too much. Every person is in the leadership position, every strategy, every product. I didn't do them all, I just touched them all. I feel such ownership. I don't know if I could really be objective enough. I decided, you know, I can't be. It's impossible. So I decided to fire myself. But I learned to sleep on decisions. So I fired myself, but I learned to sleep on that decision. And I woke up the next morning, as happens to me now when I sleep on decisions, about 50% of the time. 51% of the time, I went the other way. I woke up and I thought, yeah, I am going to fire myself, but I'm going to rehire myself on different terms. I'm not going to raise my compensation. Like, Wendy, you can reduce it. I'm going to have a term that says you have absolutely nothing you did is at all sacred. You can do anything you want going forward. In fact, you have to be objective. You have to be coldly objective. And I immediately started changing things. Within a couple of months, I met with my leadership team and I told them the story. And they were kind of like, what's wrong with him? He's really changed a lot. And I told them the story, and at the end of it, I said, look, here's the deal. You now know the story that I told them, the same one I did you. And I said, but here's the thing. Now this weekend, I want you to go do the same thing. I want you to go fire yourself. And on Sunday night, before you come in here Monday, I want you to decide whether to rehire yourself on new terms, which is nothing is sacred, nothing. And I said, if you don't fire yourself this weekend, I will, and I won't rehire you. Because reinvention is so important. It's important for the soul, it's important for the person, it's important for the company, it's important for the world. Now I want to finish by just thanking a few people. And don't worry, I know I'm over time. Those of you in the back of the room, I know you're panicked. I promise to be quick. First, I want to thank a lot of people at Logitech. This could take about 25, 30 minutes. Alistair, Prakash, Kirsty, Delphine, Michelle, Nigel, Ujesh, Vincent, Nate, Charlotte, Hobie, and Andy, and Quinn, and Yalchin, and Sam, and I could go on and on. Vincent Collette, who used to work here, Krista Todd, Jess, so many others who left us, and all the teams in Logitech. We are a construction of 6,000 people, and you always look to a CEO of a public company. You say, you deserve the award because you did so much. People said, oh, I turned the company around. I did this. I did 1/6,000th of the job. The second group I want to thank is, first I want to thank Reno for being a mentor, a chair for many years. He created all the raw material that I had to work with as a CEO, and he's a great friend, and he will always be. And then I want to thank Wendy Becker, who is now our chair. By the way, are you our first or second woman chair of the Swiss Stock Exchange? Whatever it is, too. Here. She said it's too low, whatever it is. She has been an incredible part in the transformation of Logitech and of myself for the next period, which is super, super exciting. And I can't imagine how actually anybody could have gotten quite at me the same way she has. So I'm really appreciative of that. Daniel Burrell, who is a former founder of the company, who, as crazy as he is to me sometimes, has been super helpful and also has been a provocateur in some good ways. I want to thank some other mentors. Susan Arnold, who's the chair of Disney, who gave me my first chance, and as a result, we had this Old Spice turnaround. I have nothing to do with the guy on the horseback. I wish I did, but we still turned this around. And then Sammy Segal, and Jim Hackett, who are two other brothers. I want to thank a few other people. I want to thank Corinne Bate, who taught me so much about DE&I in the post-George Floyd world. I thought I knew what I was talking about. I didn't know anything. And the murder of George Floyd was the most transformative event in my life, more than that Christmas Eve when our dad left. I want to thank my siblings who are at two tables over here, Bobby, Bart, and Shelley, who, I don't even need to tell you all the things we went through together and how weird it is that we still seem the same today. We look the same too, which is really encouraging. I want to thank my kids. Two of them are here, Anderson, Blair, and Connor. I've learned more from you than you will ever learn from me. And you'll see that. And I finally want to close on just saying it's such a privilege to be here and to get an audience with this group. It's such an honor to get an award like that from Frank, you, and the whole team here, and Walter and company. And I want to finally, just before you get a chance to get up here, I want to say, Carmichael, I am a huge admirer of yours. I didn't meet you this weekend. I can't believe what a secret you are.